Hello, my name is Jasper, and welcome to my TED Talk, which goes by the title of Gregg, Araki and the Hyperreal World of Nowhere. Next slide, please. So during this TED Talk, I plan on covering what the film Nowhere is, how it features cinema verite, then I'll go on to explain who Gregg Araki is, his influences, and then go into detail about the lack of narrative that is embedded in the film Nowhere. Next slide, please. So before I say, is anyone familiar with the film Nowhere? So, released on the 5th of June 1997, it is the third instalment of the Teenage Apocalypse trilogy by Gregg Araki. The plot is rather hard to explain because, as I'll go into in a bit, there is not too much narrative to it. It chronicles a numerous amount of characters as they go about their day, whether that's in a cafe or at like a baseball ground as they drop acid or something like that, and then it all concludes with what they call as the biggest party of the year at the end of the film. That is the main plot, I suppose, but as I say, it's a bit blurred. You follow characters from conversation to conversation, but never one character. So I'll start you'll follow my person into a conversation, you'll leave with another character. It travels a lot. It is part of the new queer cinema movement of the 90s, which was more of a reaction to things like the AIDS crisis and how the queer population was viewed by mass media and politicians and things like that. Next one, please. Just to get you up to speed, I've got a trailer of the film Nowhere, so enjoy.
I take my piano with me wherever I go. I'm trying to find my soulmate. I know there's got to be somebody out there somewhere.
Isn't that just so bitchin'?
What's your name?
I have to rock my life away in a 9-to-5 hellhole to support your lazy, juvenile delinquent. Shut!
I'm not rock out cowboy.
Oh my god.
I grew up fish and hand. Sometimes I feel so old-fashioned. There's got to be somebody out there somewhere who can hold me in their arms and tell me everything's going to be okay.
Fine Line Features presents the new movie from Gregg Araki, director of The Living End and The Doom Generation.
It's like nowhere. Everybody who lives here is lost.
Do you know what today is? It's Armageddon Day. The day the world's supposed to end.
Have I ever told you that I love you? Life is so complicated.
James Duvall, Christina Applegate, Nathan Nexton, Rachel True, Jason Simmons, Kathleen Robertson, Jeremy Jordan, Heather Graham, Trace Lawrence, and John Ritter.
It's been a gnarly day.
Nowhere. But does that make you feel so much better?
What if?
Before I played that, I know I said that I painted an alright picture of it. It doesn't really. I think that sort of puts in media how advertisers and people of the time didn't know what to expect when this film came out. Like tonally, I feel like that feels quite in chronological order, whereas the film's all over the place. As the music choices were a bit funky. Next slide, please. So another feature of this film would be cinema verite, which is a type of, usually associated with documentary type film, where the camera or the documentarian isn't interfering with the world he's documenting around him. So that can be found in Nowhere, for example, at the end scene in a party, where you are rubbing shoulders with everyone, you are in the atmosphere yourself. That can be compared to films such as Kids from 1995, where it follows two boys, these two, as they go about their day in New York. But it's, as I say, it's without interfering with the camera, as if you're not there. So that gives you the creative freedom to explore things that are really quite grimy and explore the underbelly of society, and go into that. If you compare something like films that feature cinema verite to, say, The Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson, I would say the immersion is the big difference. When watching this film, or any Wes Anderson film, I sometimes find myself disconnected to what I'm watching, where I ask myself, how did they achieve a shot? Or what sort of production went into this to achieve what they're doing? And that's the polar opposite to things like Kids and Nowhere, where you are at one with the experience that you're watching. Next slide. So, Gregg Araki, I keep on mentioning him. He was born on 17th of December 1959 to Japanese parents in Los Angeles. He went on to a college called the University of California in Santa Barbara, and then after that he went to the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts, where he achieved an MFA in 1985. He self-identifies as a gay Asian American, which really seeps into his discography and his cinematic works. A lot of his films are based in Los Angeles, and it seems to, among the hyper bright lights and the naturally capitalistic world that is Los Angeles, it hosts multiple characters in many films of his who are lost and searching for meaning in a rather meaningless world. Next slide, please. In terms of his influences, growing up, Araki wasn't particularly into film. He was more into comic books and music, mostly shoegaze of the 80s and things like post-punk. And I think it's with that punk attitude which saw him get involved with the new queer cinema movement of the 90s, because it's more of an FU to politicians and the greater idea against the queer society. As I say, it was a reaction to the AIDS crisis, and also the films like 16 Candles and Breakfast Club and all that, which portrays typically straight characters in an idealised world where they'll face a rather minor issue, and then in the end it will be all fine, and a nice little soundtrack will fade off into the sunset. It was, as I say, an FU against them sort of films, to turn it on its head, sort of portray the world in its hyper-real way, where there isn't a happy ending. Further inspirations was from people like Jean-Luc Godard, who was more prolific in the 60s and 70s with films like Breathless and Masculine and Feminine. He explored nihilistic characters just like Araki did later on, and the same as David Lynch, who both are experimental directors. Who he relates more to Lynch in the fact that he explores the underbelly of society and the more grimy truths behind the glossy surface that in Araki's work is usually portrayed by Los Angeles and stuff like that. Next slide. Nowhere's lack of narrative. So I think Nowhere classes itself as a non-narrative film, meaning that it does not follow a linear structure of its events. So it wouldn't be like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 particularly. I think that also the lack of narrative finds itself in it. It personifies itself in its characters as well, who are lost and searching for meaning and don't have any particular direction or thoughts, although they are desperate for it. It does poke fun of some genre cliches and liberties it takes to actually form a cohesive film, such as the fact that I think before it is horror elements to it. It does body horror mostly. Araki poked fun at the idea that gay characters are always killed eventually in horror. And at the end of this film, sorry for spoilers, when Dark, these two finally find themselves happy together, he explodes and combusts and then transforms into a giant cockroach. So when you actually think it's actually suddenly gone perfect, something absolutely chaotic and inexplicable goes on. Next slide. So due to the lack of narrative, you need to move events on from one to the other in a different way, and I think the use of artwork and bedrooms in the film Noah is used specifically for that. Each character's bedrooms is used as an extension of their personality, and that moves film, it just helps with the narrative, it does. So, judging from this guy's bedroom, what do you think this character's like? Anyone?
Sex best.
Sex best. What about the colours? They're moody, aren't they, everyone? Bit moody, bit blue, bit melodramatic. He's
a bit crazy.
He's flirting with the idea of suicide maybe, but he's very melodramatic, this character. I mean, he calls himself Dark, and he always goes, dark, like the absence of light. So, that's this character, and you can see that amplified by his bedroom. Next one. This character is, the main thing about her character is that she's quite androgynous, meaning that she is in a relationship with Dark, but so much to his dismay, she just is quite happy to express herself sexually with anyone who she wants to, mutually consenting. And I think that's shown here from the Twister-like artwork in her room, hands everywhere, feet anywhere. Cool. Next. And this guy, I think his character is very depressed. I think you can see his by his wallpaper, nothing makes sense. He wants to stop. He's also at the mercy of the television, meaning he's very susceptible to mass media, ending in his demise eventually. Next slide. Outfits as well in this film are all very similar to the bedrooms. They are just extensions of each character's personality. Next slide. Another tool to move narrative on is music. So that Gregg Araki uses it to emote the audience emote the audience really, move things from one to the other. Rather than saying what's happening, you use music to transform you into another scene. Gregg Araki says, "I am more influenced by music than any other medium, film, art, or anything else. It's much more than background noise to me. It's the thematic style of the movie." And also the genre of music he likes. It's like generally shoegaze, like Cocktail Twins or Slow Dive. It's very dreamlike, but then it also mirrors the gritty reality with things like industrial pain and all that, with like 9 Inch Nails. But then he's also partial for some Stacey Q with Two of Hearts. It's like ultra glitzy pop of the 80s. Next. So closing statement. I urge you all to explore Gregg Araki further and watch Nowhere because it is real good. That's it.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you think that Nowhere would be, when it came out, it was quite a shocking film, right? For the people that took the time to actually watch it.
Yeah.
Because the whole new queer cinema movement, right? It's an anti-establishment kind of movement anyway. Do you think it would still be as impacting, because you just said urge us to watch it, for your peers, now as it would have been when it came out? Does it hold up
I'd say it definitely holds up. I think people get lost in like I don't know, the fluency of editing and things like that. It's not that sort of film. It's just it's quite clunky sometimes, and it's quite guerrilla style, and it's but yeah, I'd say it definitely holds up today. I don't think the shock factor would particularly. It probably would still shock people, and I think it'd shock you a lot. But yeah.
I think a lot of it is the notion of it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just without mention. It's
Yeah.
just fluent.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone got any other questions?